What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Engineered Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Korth, and I'm excited to be here today. Today, what I want to talk about is kind of the culmination of my financial journey over the last many years. Over the last several episodes, I've kind of taken you step by step through, what that journey's looked like for me, starting with in a place of extreme uncertainty and extreme fear almost about the future, going to where I'll share with you today. I've gotten to the point where I have a lot of confidence around my financial future. Now I've got a long way to go, but I want to kind of share with you how all of this came together for me. So, just kind of quickly recapping everything we've talked about previously. Financial freedom to me, way back at the beginning, meant, I'd always be able to provide for my family. I'd never have to worry about whether or not there would be enough money in a retirement account so that I'd actually be able to retire and enjoy my life. I'd have the resources that I needed to provide an enjoyable, comfortable life for my family where we could dream big, we could make our dreams a reality. And most of all, I wanted to have just control over my time and how I spent it. I wanted to be able to spend my time as I saw fit, to build stronger relationships with the people I love, to enhance my connection with God, investing in improving my health and learning things that I wanted to learn just because they were interesting, and developing skills and figuring out what unique opportunities do I have because of who I am to help and to bless and to solve problems for other people and to make an impact in other people's lives, and as many people's lives as I could, right? That's what financial freedom represented to me. And after a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of trial and error, I shared a strategy that I figured out that would allow me to eventually become financially free, right? And essentially what it was is I found people that already had what I wanted, and I just did my best to figure out how to model them, right? I talked to them, I found out what they were doing and tried to model that. But what I found over time is that although I was using the tools that they used, I was doing my best to implement the strategies that they were using, I felt like I wasn't getting the result that I desired most, which was feeling like I was actually in control. And I had confidence that I was going to be able to achieve the things that I wanted, right? Not just financially, but in every aspect of my life. So, I've shared that strategy was essentially using a specially structured life insurance policy to store and grow our cash, and then using those policies to buy real estate and kind of double our returns, right? Earn in both the policy and in real estate. But it was going slow, right? It wasn't going as fast as I wanted. We were buying a couple properties, we were seeing some cash flow, but we weren't keeping up with the schedule we had. We had this schedule where we were supposed to buy 2 properties every year for 10 years, and then we'd be financially free. In year 1, we only managed to buy 1 property, and in year 2, we only managed to buy 1 property. So we were supposed to be at 4, and we were only at 2. And it just, so we were starting to see some cash flow. It was exciting for a while, but it just felt like we were falling behind schedule. And so, I was doing my best to learn and to take action in my plan. And I was reading a bunch of newsletters, and I was still, trying to do other things to make it go faster. I was still investing in stocks, and I was trying to, I still had money that was trapped in a 401k. I couldn't get out. And so I was trying to figure out, how do I best invest these dollars so that, at least if it's there someday, I've got as much as possible, right? And I was trying to learn about option trading and cryptocurrencies and currency trading and all these other things, just trying to go faster, right? But no matter how much I learned, I always felt like a novice at everything. I never had confidence that, when I bought a stock, it was just because some newsletter told me to go buy the stock. And they'd kind of make the case, but I didn't really understand why I was buying it. I didn't know anything about the management. I didn't really understand what the company did, and I had no confidence in owning that stock because I never knew, was it doing well? Should I be selling? What should I be looking for to know, is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? All I could do was the price, and just keep reading the newsletter and let them tell me if and when to sell, right? And And so there was no certainty, there was no confidence because I didn't really understand what I was doing. And then even with the real estate, when I ran into issues or questions, I'd struggle for days or weeks trying to figure out what to do or how to overcome whatever the issue was. And no matter how much I tried to implement what I was learning, no matter how much success I had, it always felt like I was spinning my wheels. And financial freedom always felt as far away as it ever had, even though, on paper I was making progress, but inside I didn't have any confidence that I was going to get there because I didn't feel like I was in control of my system. And things came to a head for me one morning when I realized that even if I managed to achieve this 10-year time frame, financial freedom in 10 years, it wasn't going to matter. It was going to be too late because my oldest kids, 10 years from when I started, would already be grown up. They'd already be out of the house. And so many of the things that I wanted to do with them that I was convinced I had to be financially free in order to be able to do those things with them someday wouldn't happen because someday was going to come too late, right? And I didn't know what to do. I felt like I couldn't win. I'd spent years and years and thousands of dollars and many, many hundreds of hours trying to come up with something, and I just felt like I couldn't win. And then something amazing happened. Life always seems to give us just what we need right when we need it. And unbeknownst to me, the guy that had actually helped me really learn and get started with this strategy had been working with a couple of partners building a company to not only teach people this strategy, but to help them exactly where I was struggling. Because what they'd seen over the years, they'd been helping people for years, but what they'd found is that, they'd get people started and they teach them the concept, but then there really was nothing on the back end to support people in implementing what they taught. And so eventually they got frustrated seeing all their clients that, had these amazing tools and these amazing strategies at their fingertips, but didn't really understand how to use them. And so they weren't getting the results. And so they decided to create this company that would do that, would provide that back end support, make sure people had the resources and they had the education. They had the team around them to help them be successful. And so, I joined their program and I started going through their content, and it was amazing because in a matter of weeks, literally, I found that all of a sudden I had the resources, I had the education to create the two things that had always been eluding me. And one of those was the certainty, right? The confidence that I understood what I was doing. I knew why I was doing it, what I should be doing, and why it was going to work. And then the other thing was that I guess it was almost permission that I could start to live an abundant life now, right? I didn't have to wait till someday when I was financially free on paper to start living a wealthy life. That was something I could start doing right now. And for some stupid reason, that had never occurred to me, right? That I didn't have to delay life until I was financially free. And I think it just stemmed from this retirement mindset, right? We're trained that we go to school, we go to work, and we just live for someday, right? Once school's over, we get a job and a real paycheck. And then once we're done working in 30 or 40 years, then we finally get to go live our lives, right? But all the time that we're going through that, it's, in school, it's just grind, so you can get good grades and get a good job. And then at work, it's decades of grinding, so we can get the next raise and the next promotion and the next, achievement award and recognition. And hopefully somewhere along the way, we're stuffing enough away in a retirement plan that when we're done, we can afford to finally go do the things that we always wanted to do, right? And so even though I was looking at a 10-year time frame, I still was taking that paradigm to it. I was looking at life through that lens that until I achieve this, I can't go do everything else I want to do. And that's pretty stupid, but that's just how we're kind of conditioned. And so that was one of the most important things that I realized when I started working with these guys is that's silly. That doesn't have to be that way. You can maybe you can't go get the Lamborghini right now, right? Maybe you can't have the huge house that you want right now, but there's something you can be doing right now with the time you have, with the resources you have to start defining and living a wealthy life. And that was just such a massive game changer for me Um, and so, you financially, as soon as I got involved with this, I started to realize that the reason I felt like I was spinning my wheels so much was um, because what I should have been focused on, which was, just implementing this core simple strategy. I was treating it like just one more thing, right? In an effort to go faster, I was doing the policy and real estate and stocks and options and cryptocurrencies and precious metals. And I was splitting my time and my energy between all of these things. And the result was I couldn't focus on the one or the couple of things that really, really mattered, right? And so what I did is I realized I had to focus, because if I didn't focus, this was never going to work. And that focus is what was going to allow me to go faster. So I started to get rid of the distractions. I canceled all of my newsletters. And I by this point, I had a ridiculous pile of these things. I canceled all of them. Things that I'd come to love, I'd read every month for years, got rid of all of them. I removed every dollar in my 401k. I moved all of it into the cash account. And this was late 2018 when, there was kind of a dip, but the market still went up quite a bit between 2018 and, up till, February, I guess, of 2020. What's happened between February and May of 2020 when I'm talking to you now is another story. But, so I gave up a lot of upside in the market, but I moved all of it to cash because I realized it was a distraction. And I got laser focused on the processes that my mentor taught me way back in 2013, and I'd finally started implementing in 2016, and now it was 2018. It was finally clicking, right? And it was such a simple process. I go make money. I save money in a life insurance policy, and every time I can, I go buy a house. And then I just make more money and I save more money in a policy, and every time I can, I buy a house. It's just so simple. And I just had to focus on those three things, right? And I can't tell you how fast things started to change once I got rid of all the distractions, once I started to focus, because all of a sudden now I didn't have to focus on understanding the life insurance policy and understanding how to be a good real estate investor and understanding how to be a successful stock market investor and get smart at all these different companies I was trying to invest in, and understand the difference between investing successfully in a brokerage account and successfully in my 401k. And then on top of that, trying to understand precious metals markets and all that. Like, all of those things were taking time. All of those were taking money. All of those were taking energy that made it so that I wasn't doing any of them well. And so all of a sudden I had all of this free time and free mental capacity to go figure out, okay, why does this life insurance policy work? Why is this such a powerful strategy that is going to help me? And why is it when I couple it with real estate, it's going to allow me to go faster than anything else anybody else is doing? Because the only people I know that are becoming financially free fast are doing this. And so I just need to understand really well, how does the policy work? How does the real estate work? And how do they work together? And then once I understand that and build systems around those, then it's just, okay, how do I make more money so I can go faster? And every dollar I make that I'm going to dedicate to this is just going to go into this system, and it's just going to start to churn, right? And it was amazing. I'd been doing this for 5 years at this point, but all of a sudden I started to learn, it started to click, and I started to get how these things worked individually and together and why they were so powerful. And so, I made some significant investments in focused courses to teach me about those things. I joined a high dollar mastermind group to help me get an advanced education in the tools and the strategies I was using. And like I said, within weeks, it was just amazing what getting focused did. I got clear on what mattered, not only financially, but in other aspects of my life. And I started to get more clear on, the system that I needed to build and what would happen when new dollars came into my personal economy, right? And most importantly, I started to feel what I'd been chasing for 8.5 years, which was that certainty, right? With that scared little brand new engineer in 2007 was craving when I saw everybody around me losing, 60% of their 401ks and losing half of the equity in their homes. what it created in me was a desire for certainty and to know that I was going to build something that was going to last. And all of a sudden I started to feel that for the first time. And the funny thing was that nothing had changed financially, right? The only thing that had changed was what was taking place between my ears, right? It was all mental. It was just the way I was looking at things and the way I was approaching it. And so, um, all of this, so it's been, what is it? I don't know, 20 months since I got started in that. Um, and, and when I compare what's happened, again, mostly in my head, mostly in my understanding, my education, my mindset, my skill sets around these things, and the network I built around these things in the last 20 months, when I compare that to what I achieved in the 8.5 years prior to that, it just blows me away. Um, and the coolest thing is the financial changes, even 20 months later, are not that significant. But the person I become as an investor, as an employee, as a business owner, the person I've become in the last 20 months is fundamentally different than who I was 20 months ago. And I absolutely love it. And it's that change, it's that certainty, that confidence that I love, right? And the dollars I don't worry about so much anymore. I mean, it's still a big deal, right? I mean, I still need those to get where I want to go, but it, I know that's going to come. I understand now that's just going to be a natural byproduct of the person that I become. And so like after I joined, like we actually had kind of some big setbacks financially last year. And so again, we only ended up buying one house. So at this point, we should have been up to like 6 or 8 houses, and we still only had 3. But it was okay because I understood the importance of, we had those setbacks and we consumed some reserves. And now I understood it was really important for me to take the time to go back and replenish those reserves before we kept moving forward with buying real estate. So we did that. And even though it felt like, negative progress at some points to be building that savings back up when I wanted to just be buying more houses and building cash flow, I understood now why that was so critical. And what's been very cool is the last 8 weeks, all of this, everything that I've done and learned and become in the last 20 months, has really come to light. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the economic carnage that the government's response to that has wrought. And what's been really interesting to watch is, I see what's happening all around me, and I will be the first to admit, like I'm in a very good position. I've been fortunate enough and blessed enough that I have not lost my job, which a lot of people have, right? But what's interesting is as this whole thing started, and at the beginning, I had anxiety. I was concerned just like everybody else was, but a couple of days into it, after it became clear that this was actually like a big deal, right? The economy started shutting down and all these things were happening. After a couple of days of kind of feeling anxiety and, what's going to happen with our investments and, our money and my job and all that stuff, my wife and I sat down and we really took inventory of where we were, right? And we realized, you know what? If I lost my job, yeah, that would stink. That would be really hard, but we've prepared for it. We've got money in the bank. We've got money in our policies. We've got food storage at home. We've got toilet paper at home. Like all of these things that a lot of people were very concerned about, suddenly weren't creating anxiety anymore. And instead we started to develop a sense of confidence because we'd taken the time and made the effort to not only build this foundation, but to understand how to use it. And so what that allowed us to do was start to step back and say, okay, well, we know we're going to be okay. If the stores run out of food, we're going to be okay for a while because we've got some here. If I lose my job, we're going to be okay because we've got money. And so we started to step back and say, okay, well, what can we do? We're stuck at home. We're still working, but we've got time, we've got space that we can start to look for what opportunities are going to come out of this. And so one of the really big ones was, Congress passed this legislation, and part of what they did to help people was gave people greater access to the funds that were in their qualified retirement plans. And so we looked at the conditions, and we looked at the financial impacts that we had. And there were a couple ways we'd been negatively impacted by COVID. And so we realized we had an opportunity to cash out our 401k, all of it. These dollars that had been trapped there and that I'd resented for all these years, we all of a sudden had access to that. So I made a phone call. I looked at the tax implications, and we pulled the trigger, and we pulled every dollar out of our 401k, right? And what was so cool, and it was this that really made me realize how far I'd come, is, previously one of the things that had always made me feel like I didn't have confidence is when new money would come in, I was always trying to figure out, okay, should this go into my vault? Should this go into stocks? Should this go into, and sorry, when I say vaults, I'm talking about my policies. So do I put money into my policy? Do we put this towards, a new property? Do we put this towards stocks or bonds or cryptocurrency? Or, where should these dollars go? And it was always a question mark. And I didn't have a system. I didn't have a plan. And so again, that led to me not feeling confident in my ability to become financially free. This time was absolutely 180 degrees different, right? This was the biggest check I think that's ever hit our bank account. And within days, it was all deployed exactly where it needed to be, because we had a system and we understood we have this little personal economy. We've got systems within this personal economy. And when new dollars come in, we know exactly where they go, right? And so when that check hit the bank account, we already knew, okay, this much is going to personal reserves. This much is going to business reserves. This much is going to real estate reserves. This is going to plus up our policies. This much is going to go to pay down policy loans, pay back debt that we've taken for our investments. And it was just boom, 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 boom. And within days, all of it was transferred. Every dollar was where it belonged. And we'd put ourselves in a much stronger financial position, both in terms of our foundation, right, to increase our staying power. So if I lost my job, now we were going to be even more okay. If our tenants had to stop paying rent, we had the flexibility now where we could work with them because we plussed up our reserves, and help them out while not hurting ourselves. As I continued to, I have a small side business, and as that continued to be impacted, and because I lost sales and things like that, we were going to be okay because we had reserves there now. And on top of being in a stronger position, with a stronger foundation, we now had additional capital that we're going to be able to go invest. And I'm actually putting a contract in today for my next rental property. Okay. Now, I want you to understand, I'm not saying any of that to brag. Okay. What I want to do is illustrate that in 20 months, I went from a fairly uneducated investor, a very uncertain investor, to where I had confidence, I had certainty, I had systems. And all of that was a result of investing in developing my mindset, investing in my education, investing in a team that could help me understand and navigate these things. And then being willing to, again, like we talked about before, take action on those things that we learn. Okay. And so understand, I'm only sharing these things to illustrate the principle that in doing those things and making those investments in me, it allowed us to have these financial results, right? And it's made me realize that all of those years that I was chasing this, financial freedom was always less about dollars and cents and far more about what was happening in my head, right? And it's made me realize that, well, I still have a long way to go. On paper, I'm a long ways from financial freedom, right? Like I said, we're about to buy house number 4. We should be at 8 or 9 or 10 at this point. So, we got a long ways to go on paper. But in my head, I've already arrived. And that's where true freedom starts. One of the coolest things I ever remember hearing was a guy that said he'd been talking to a gentleman that had lost like 100 pounds. And when he asked him how he did it, he said, I lost 100 pounds in a day, but it took my body 6 months to catch up, right? What he meant by that was something had to change in his mind first. He had to start to see himself as someone that weighed 100 pounds less. And as soon as that shift happened in his head, everything, he was able to change everything else in his life to become that person, right? To physically manifest what he already had become in his head. And I feel like that's what's happened. That's how financial freedom happens, right? You have to go from being someone who feels dependent on other people for their success to someone that recognizes that it all starts with you. It's all about your own mindset, the skill sets that you build, the team that you build, and having the mindset that you are someone who is financially free, right? And once you do that, whether that takes you 2 years or 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, doesn't matter, because it's the inevitable outcome of the internal shifts that are happening. Okay. So once I realized that, it made me realize that the financial results, the financial freedom was much more achievable than I ever imagined. And then it didn't have to take long to achieve that mindset, right? Again, it was literally a matter of weeks. Once I got into this program and these things started to click, it was a matter of weeks before this mindset started to change. I started to see tangible and meaningful progress towards not only my financial goals, but goals in every other area of my life. Okay. Now, again, I've got a long way to go. I know that it's going to be far from, rainbows and butterflies from here on out. Like, there are going to be awful days when I screw things up and I have major setbacks and I lose money and my mindset goes to pot. And, hopefully all of that is going to provide lots of interesting fodder for this podcast. You guys will get to see me go through my own ups and downs, and hopefully I can help you through some of your own. But the big takeaway from today is that freedom starts in your head, and it doesn't have to take a long time, right? Once I found the right mentors, again, it was like a light switch flipped in my head. And it just took weeks to start down a totally different path. And now, as I'm part of this group, I'm watching people do in months what it took me almost a decade to achieve, just because I didn't have the resources to realize these things. So that's the big takeaway from today, right? All this is going to start in your head. Your desire to be financially free, your desire for certainty in your financial plan, and your ability to use that certainty to now go out and create an abundant life, not just financially, but create abundance in every area of your life, and to start to live a wealthy life today. All of that starts between your ears, right? And that's really the most important part of this whole journey, is to have that mental shift and to have that click for you. Okay. So that's kind of been my experience. And that's just the financial piece of it, guys. And that's not even the coolest part. Okay. In the next episode, I'm going to share the best part about this. And that is, what did it look like for me when I started to recognize that I could start to live a wealthy life now, right? That I no longer had to defer it. I no longer had to be focused on a distant, uncertain someday, but that I could start living a wealthy life today. And that was really where everything mattered, and where everything most important is taking place right now for me. Okay. So that's all I've got for you today. I hope that's been helpful, and I will see you on the next episode.